Hello, viewers of The Pioneer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. The new year started fast, didn't it? The Russia-Ukraine war is going on in the midst of this year's New Year celebrations. In a moment, we will analyze the developments of the Russia-Ukraine war on the map. As you know, there is a Donetsk front line where the Russian armed forces continue their pressure. We have been informing you for quite a long time that the Russian pressure on this line continues. However, the pressures don't yield any results. Although the Russian army is making progress, it is suffering heavy losses. Ukrainian armed forces troops continue to threaten the Russian army by maintaining their presence at the bridgeheads on the Kherson front line. According to the latest reports, Russian troops are trying to exert heavy pressure on the Kherson front line, but have not yet achieved any successes here. We will examine this issue on the map in a moment. So, what is happening on the front line? What is the latest situation? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to convey the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my hard-working team by using the super thanks button below the videos. Thank you in advance for all the supports. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's start our map report by analyzing the latest developments on the Kherson front line. First, let's look at the Kherson front line on the map. According to the latest reports, the Ukrainian Armed Forces Marines continued their hit-and-run attacks in the direction of Kherson and on the Delta Islets. It is worth noting here, we are constantly referring to the operations of the Ukrainian Marines. You may be wondering why progress is being made here. The hit-and-run strategy does not aim to make any progress. The main goal of the hit-and-run strategy is to wear down the opposing side as much as possible. This is what the Ukrainian armed forces are doing here. The main goal is to make the Russian troops in this area completely free from the possibility of attack. In other words, in a sense, to stall. We have repeatedly reported on the operations carried out by the other units of the Ukrainian armed forces in the neighborhoods, while the hit-and-run attacks here continue. The aim of the operations here is to wear down the Russian armed forces and prepare for the next offensives of the Ukrainian army. The main target of the Ukrainian troops' advance will most likely to be Crimean Peninsula. Every breach opened here, even a bullet spent by the Russian forces, should be seen as a great advantage for the Ukrainian army. Most of the negative comments currently being made about this area will probably be invalidated if the Ukrainian armed forces launch a new offensive. In addition to Kherson, the Ukrainian armed forces have also carried out a series of offensive operations in the Poyma direction. However, as we have mentioned, since the offensive strategy of the Ukrainian army turned more into an irregular warfare style, we can only mention that the Russian army suffered heavy losses, but there were no gains for Ukraine. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Kherson, Antoniivka, and Tagininka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in Oleshki, Podostepnoe, and Pestchanovka. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, the Zaporizhia front line had a quiet day compared to the last week. According to reports, there is only one point where attacks continue. That is the town of Verbotny. Russian armed forces continued their pressure on the town of Verbotny. However, it is still not possible to say that any progress has been made. In the direction of Verbov, the Ukrainian armed forces made a tactical retreat in the past days. Although the Russian army is making efforts to deepen the Ukrainian withdrawal here, there are no reports of further withdrawal of the Ukrainian army. As mentioned, due to the calm on the Zaporizhia front line, we can't provide much detailed information about the region today. Therefore, let's continue with artillery activity. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Orikhi, Verbotny, Malaya Tokmakcha, Novodanilovka, and Novoandriivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Novoprokopivka, Ichenkov, and Solotka Balka. Let's continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, on the Donetsk front line, units of the Russian armed forces supported by long-range weapons attacked the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces over a large area. On the southern outskirts of the Novokhanilivka, near Permovskoye in Grigorivka, in the town of Krasnogorovka in Nevelskoye, in Severnoye, near the cook factory in the northeast of fortified area and near Stepnoye. As we have stated in our previous reports, the Russian army is trying to implement here the strategy of expanding the conflict zone of the Ukrainian army. So far, the Russian army has not been successful in implementing this strategy. According to the latest reports, the Russian army has not made any gains during its recent attacks. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Hurlivka, Krasnohorivka, and Nivolsky. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Staromikhailivka, Marinka, Volhytny, and Pitsky. Let me continue with the latest developments on the Bakhmut front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces supported by artillery carried out a series of attacks on the Andriivka and the hills northwest of Klishchivka. The Ukrainian army, which had the advantage here, managed to hold its positions. On the other hand, Russian troops were able to achieve tactical successes in similar actions near Bogdanivka. Otherwise, the demarcation line alone in the Bakhmut front line remains stable. Let's talk about artillery activity in the area. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian positions in Stupchukki, Ivanivsky, Kalinkov, Radzilovka, and Severnoye. In contrast, Ukrainian artillery targeted Russian positions in the Bakhmut town center of Yahidny. Let's continue with the Luhansk front line. According to the latest reports, Russian forces have resumed their offensives near Makiivka. The aim of the Russian army here is to cut the bridgehead of the Ukrainian armed forces on the left bank of the Zherbets River. However, so far they have not achieved any results. In response, the Ukrainian army launched a counterattack near Oliivka. We can say that it was a particularly successful offensive. The Ukrainian army also has an offensive in Sinkiivka. However, these offensives and attacks did not change the borderline. Now tell me, what do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army's hit-and-run strategy on the Kherson front line is successful? What do you think about the latest situation on the Donetsk front line? Do you think the Ukrainian army can carry out a new offensive in Luhansk? What do you think about the withdrawal of the Ukrainian army on the Bakhmut front line? Tell me in the comments. You know that I read and I care about all your comments.